And we can look at a lot of the leadership qualities that have evolved into the activities and actions of people who were our managers and or leaders. And we found that many of them did not have the birthright, you might say, to be a leader, but instead they had an exposure that enhanced themselves to be a leader. So as we look at leadership concepts, let us look at it in terms of what people are able to do, how they're able to do it. I'm going to specify some things in a moment, but put those two things in your mind, because it's there that you will find what made a person a leader. And you can take individuals with whom you've worked, maybe with whom you work now, and you suddenly realize, hey, these people came from the backwoods of Mariana, and here they are at Chipola, and they are first-class leaders. They weren't born that way. They were exposed to some things. Some of their exposure might have been educational. Some might have been spiritual. Some might have been on the streets that helped to modify their style of living. And it made them a different kind of leader. I've been told that I was a fairly decent leader. I can tell you right now, I wasn't born to be one if I was the kind of leader they say that I was. But it was my exposure as I played hooky from school and swam in the Hillsborough River, as I picked cotton and shook peanuts in Cairo, Georgia, as I pushed cottons on the streets of New York City, and as I served 3 years in the military. All those things, I would say, helped to mold me into whatever I became. And we've got to take a look at all those things. And so, as we look at concepts of leadership, I'm going to lay out for you 8 things, and you have a little sheet that you're going to get more comprehensive information by the time we finish today that you can take home. But I don't want you sitting up reading things. I want you to listen and write and make notes, and it'll make a difference. There are 8 major leadership theories that most people talk about. One is the great man theory. Wow, what's a great man theory? That's the concept that I mentioned a moment ago, that it was inherent that this person became a leader. A lot of the early leaders felt that way. Yeah, they used that because leadership was thought of primarily as a male quality. That's important to think about, because a lot of people felt like males were the great leaders. Think about military time. You didn't hear them talk about women as great leaders in the military. You can hear some of it now. You heard who? Eisenhower, Churchill, Roosevelt. That's during wartime that changed nations. Today you hear something differently. Because of what? The change in times. And what people are able to do and how they grew up. So important. Then there evolved the contingency theories, where leadership focused on a variety of variables in one's life according to the environment that one might have been exposed to. Think about it. Success depends upon what? A number of variables, including your leadership styles, quality of followers, and the aspect of the situation. Is the man crazy? What's he talking about? Aspect of the situation. That's just what we're talking about. What is or was the situation like as you came along? That's what helped to make you whatever kind of leader you became. A lot of people don't understand that, but that's the truth. And then there's the trait theory. Wow, the trait theory. You inherited, you were born with. Boy, he's just like his granddaddy. She's just like her grandmama. Just like her mama. Wow. That's a trait theory. That does not mean, though, that that's really what it was. It's what people believed it was. And as we go forth with a variety of things, you will see how that kind of thing was modified from time to time. Then take a look at situational theories. You got to take a look at that with some real sensitivity, because you're talking about the course of action based upon situations. Different styles of leadership may be appropriate for certain types of decisions. You know, if you are a decision maker, you've got to be the kind of leader who can delve into what it takes to make the decision that needs to be made. You weren't born with it, were you? But now you're exposed to it. So you got to do something with what's between your ears to make the kind of decision that's going to make a difference in your environment, in your organization, in your position. Very significant. And then there is the concept of behavioral theories. Great leaders are made, not born, rooted in behavioralism. This kind of leadership theory focuses on the action of leaders on mental qualities or internal states. Some of what I just said before. Take what's between your ears. You learn to become a leader a couple of ways: through teaching and through observation. How many of you in here are teachers? How many of you have been teachers and have moved up? Well, that's what it takes quite often, and that's what helps to make you a great leader, when you have both been involved in teaching and what? Observation. Very significant in your growth and development and the putting together your leadership qualities. And then there is participative theories. Wow. The ideal leadership style is one that takes the input of others into account. So many people can't do that. Some people feel like if they've got to make the decision, it's their decision. Never mind what somebody else says. But that is not what makes a strong person. what makes a strong leader is one who's willing to encourage participation. Don't forget that word, encourage. Encourage participation and contributions from the group that they are working with. You know, some people have a hard time accepting input from people with whom they are working. Well, if you have no positive sense of participative theory or participative concepts, then you are going to be out there sometime in life on the island by yourself because you made the wrong decision and did not get the input that was going to help you be on the mainland. Another one is management theories. Focus on the concept of the role of supervision in your organization and in group performance. Now, this is very, very important because here you're talking about a concept of rewards and punishment. A lot of people don't think about that. Rewards and punishment as leaders. Think about it. People are successful a lot of times because they are rewarded for what they've done. Athletes get out there and play a hard game of football and basketball with one thing on their mind. I want to be what? The MVP. And you know what? Instead of passing the ball, he ran the ball. Instead of passing the ball to someone who's already under the goal, he did what? Dribbled the ball. And guess what? The team lost. But if he or she had learned how to pass the ball with the concept of total success, my, what a difference it would have made. And a lot of us as leaders think that all I want is to get a bigger paycheck next year. Okay? But the punishment that comes if you stand there by yourself and make a decision without proper input that will make the sum total of the organization stronger, wow, what a difference it makes. So what do you have? Reward and what? And punishment. That evolves out of management theories. And I'm emphasizing that again because it's so important. And I have to, from time to time, think about it when I served as president of the institution that Mike talked about. And he knows what I mean about it. If I had stood out there by myself in the late 70s and 80s at Florida A&M University and made the decisions for where we were going without the proper input from faculty, staff, students, and alumni, we never would have gotten some of the things we got. And out of that kind of input came new buildings, new programs, a stronger institution. So don't forget that. Management theory is very important. And there are two words that are important. What are they? All right. Now put that between your ears. And don't forget it. And finally, relationship theories. Oh, man. How significant they are. Transformational. the relationship between leaders and followers. You got to develop a positive relationship if you're going to be a successful leader. That's got to include your followers. And if you don't know how to do that, well, you're going to be in trouble. Why? Because you've got to look at your focus in terms of your group members. What kind of input can you get from the members in your group? And when you start doing that, it makes a whole lot of difference. And now you ask the question, how do you approach this whole concept of leadership? What do you do? How are you going to make it happen? Well, going to make it very simple. Lord, I have to look at my watch because I'm a public speaker, not a presenter like this, and I got to stay within Michael's time. Notice I said Michael's time, not my time. First of all, you've got to get a basic sense of the system of an organization. The basic sense of the system of an organization, including its functions and roles and how they are integrated. Wow, that's deep. How they are integrated, the functions and the roles. Part of it is a word called what? Mission. What is the mission of the organization? Now, when you think of the mission of the organization, you've got to think of what the functions and roles are throughout the what? Institution in order to reach what? Its mission. That means input from across the institution. Do you see something that's consistent in what we're talking about? Input. Not dictatorship. Input. So that when you make that tough decision, you have people saying, he or she got our input when they made that decision. Not he stood out there by himself and made the decision and said, the heck with the rest of us. That's what you don't want to do. Next, you got to think of how your sense of abilities and leadership can be developed in an informal and formal way. Did you hear me? Informal and formal way. Think about that, informal and formal. If you look at it in terms of informal, you're talking about a broad sense of what? Input. When you look at it in terms of formal, you're probably looking at, well, this is my executive council, huh? And my executive council is going to make the decision that I'm going to follow for the entire institution. And guess what? That might not be in the best interest of the institution, huh? So you've got to look at it, what? Formally and informally. Look at it how? All right. Another one, you've got to scan the topics in this thing of leadership in order to realize that there are definitions of leadership, different theories, different models, and traits of leadership, and different domains of leadership. Wow. If that's the case, then you've got to have different competencies of qualities. That's very important. So that you're doing it at what? Different levels. So that you can be successful. And then finally, You've got to get a sense for how your abilities in leadership can be developed in two ways that we've talked about, informal and all right. That's very important, formal and informal. And when you get that sense of how it can happen, wow, you can get some things done that you never dreamed of. But it's so important to get that in there. Now, what's a leadership theory versus a model, etc.? I want to run through this quickly because I'm getting ready to break you out of where you are now and put you in small groups and make you talk about some things. Some of you are not going to like me then because I'm going to break up TCC that's in here in big numbers, and you got to talk with some folk from other places. All right? But think about it. Leadership is often explained by using certain terms. The model, the style. So important. Philosophy is one of them. And I want you to remember this because it's so important. Philosophy is a broad general belief, a set of beliefs, for example, that many describe as servant leadership, or as a philosophy or practice in this whole thing of servant leadership. Wow, think about it. Is that where you want to be? Well, it's fine to sit in the library and read it and think about what somebody said, but what kind of impact does it have on not only your leadership, but the decisions that come out of it? A theory is a suggestion, a speculation about why something is occurring, and it might be based on a variety of philosophies. Might be based on what? A variety of philosophies. And when this happened, let me tell you what. These things happen. The following is best to have or to do what the traits theory suggests, that certain features are based and needed in someone to be a great leader. You've got to have what? You've got to have a theory. You've got to have a feature. Otherwise, you won't become that great leader. And that's very important. And when you break into your groups, you're going to talk about some of that. A style is the nature of how someone acts when exacting a certain theory or model. And guess what evolves out of that? Either autocratic leadership or democratic leadership. And you know something else? It can be a laissez-faire concept of leadership. And what do you do then? You take your hands off of it and say, well, whatever will be, will be. Have any of you ever seen that kind of leadership? And when you see it, you usually rot and go to, you know what I'm talking about? So really, you've got to look at leadership in terms of enacting a theory, a model that involves what? The people with whom you must work. The people who will not only drive the organization to what evolves out of it, but also the people who will be affected by what comes out of it. Excuse me for a moment, please. I'm so dry. Throat. I was trying not to do this. When you run your mouth so long, you know that happens to you. Well, now, excuse me. I want you to think about something. I'm going to ask you some questions, and then I'm going to break you up into groups. And I want you to think about something. Is leading different from management?
Yes.
I want you to think about it. Is leading different